we'll go ahead and get started then. I am recording, so we can share this later on. And I guess if it's just the three of us today, maybe it'll be a little bit shorter. We'll see. We've only got two action items in here right now. One is the ongoing effort of importing historical posts into the hub. Any progress update, John? I think John's frozen.
Lithuania is setting up a hub PHP development server, and then will work with me to import the data which I have obtained in order to try to put it into the development server. And if that works, we'll then be able to move it into the live production server.
Okay.
We're trying to set up that server on the same server that e-NABLE.org points to. And Masvi is tied up for the next couple of days. We've already had a couple of productive and useful sessions, and I think he has a very welcome skill set that will be a good thing for us in a variety of ways.
Okay. Sounds good. And then Ben and I are continuing to work on migrating projects and stories over from WikiFactory. I saw an email from you earlier, Ben, that you've migrated a number of other projects over, right?
Yeah, there's 4 projects that I brought over this week so far. And I've been trying different things with trying to get the functionality from WikiFactory to HomeHub, but it's sort of fun to kind of play around with it and try to get a sense of it. I have been doing this week, not just bringing over the members that I can find. Really, it's only the people that have posted things. I can't seem to find in WikiFactory all the people that have been following a page. It'd be great to be able to get a list of those people and invite them all to the new spaces, but I've only been able to find the people that have contributed, not just the followers. So I've been putting them in the spaces and then changing the ownership to the original owner. But it does look like I've posted all the old posts. I mean, it says my name as posting all these things, but I think the content's up there, and then the people, after they regain ownership, can pick them up where they left off.
Okay.
Those are good things to be looking into.
So yeah, I don't know if through the admin features of WikiFactory, it's possible to get more information about who's following these different projects, but that would be nice.
That's a good question. I have admin rights on WikiFactory. The next time we're together, we can explore it.
Great. I'll write it down.
Okay. Moving along then. I think we talked about today having you, Ben, give us an update on your plans for the e-NABLE Media Coordination Initiative that Lumio proposal was approved. So you still want to go through that today?
I can. It's maybe I can just kind of summarize what I've been working on this week and sort of what I got queued in for next week. And what I'll have to do, I apologize, I'll have to add in this stuff to the notes after the meeting, but I have my report in front of me, so I can read that and then just add in stuff to the notes after.
Okay.
Do you want to share something, screen share or
sure.
something?
I can share it, and then let's see. Let me put down. So I'll just put this under individual updates or guest presentation. That's fine.
There you go.
MC report. So I'll have one of these every month, and I'll just be adding to it every week. Let me make sure that you guys have access to it. Are you able to open it?
No, it says we need access.
Okay, let me open up the link. Okay, try it now.
Yep.
There we
Great.
go.
Shall I put it on my screen share? So you can.
That'd be fine. You can put it in your screen share. So this is sort of a summary of activities in October, but I basically just put it together this past week, and I'll have it sort of every month. I'll try to tally up the projects that I'm working on. So there's just general highlights. There's changes in chapters. and I'm sort of playing with this to see what's going to be the most useful information. Again, not just for me, but sort of as a model of things to kind of look out for. Weekly and monthly communications, some of just the general communications that I've sent out. In terms of collaborations with projects, yesterday looking over Chad and Rodrigo's proposal for Lumio to give them some feedback. John also jumped in to give them some feedback. Working on some English captions with the e-NABLE Brazil promotional video. And then chatting with John a little bit about the PHP projects that we could do within HumHub, not just in terms of having a hosted sandbox for testing different features, but also it'd be really great to look into these custom dynamic pages instead of using iframes and the global tags that we've talked about. I think with a developer, we're going to have a lot more access to trying to find ways to bring the projects together using the same tagging system. Right now, each space has its own tagging system. There's just a list of all the documents that I've been working on. The content migration. I've been keeping an eye on the HumHub forum feed and including topics. And even though it's just within the forum, I think getting a sense of how we can use those, that way of organizing the system will give us insights into the development that we can do across the different spaces. So I've been adding in those topics. And there's just sort of a list of different documents. One of the main things I wanted to try out with the SPC meetings was the monthly summaries. I shared, I think it was last week, I shared the draft for that. I'll be adding in updates from this meeting. And again, I think it'd be really great to maybe look at creating a space within HumHub. So we can be, and if you already have a space for the SPC, it'd be great to try to get some discussions going on about some of the topics that people talk about. Jeremy's been doing a really great job in organizing the meetings and having the notes, and even after the notes, having links to specific parts of the content. I tried to pull all that together into the sort of a monthly summary and getting a sense of some of the themes that cross over week to week, I think can be a really great asset for the newsletter. So
Yeah, and
trying to bridge between a
Ben,
newsletter.
I did. I don't know if you saw, but in the hub on the SPC page, I did embed a link to your monthly summary, and I can update that then each month. And in that SPC space, there is a stream like in any other space, so we can certainly get discussions started there.
That'd be great. And I think too, when people are talking about things in the general forum that relate to some of the topics in the SPC discussions, it'd be great to kind of pull them into that space as the sort of the forum for covering that stuff and getting people access to, not just, a whole list of videos, but also with the monthly summaries, we can sort of have it be specific to the content. So there's a little summary section on, let's say, the domain of the discussions that we had in the video, but then that direct link that you've been creating in your overviews after the meetings, which I think is really handy. So,
okay.
These kind of systems, I think, could save us some time. So, in the end, having 3 of these monthly summaries will be a lot easier to pull some stuff together for a newsletter. And it's something that's already happening. So that's one of these projects. I've been looking at the identity and presence stuff. We talked about that last week. Looking at some of the logos, and we can get into some of that stuff later, but it would be great as we continue working with Deloitte and some of our other chapters to be trying to think about a simplified system of some logos that we can use across different chapters, basically a package of resources, but as simple as possible, and something where it's a set, something where the logos sort of work together in kind of a system that that people will identify with e-NABLE across chapters. So anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. Looking ahead, it'll be great to see if I can catch up with Bob next week. We were loosely talking about maybe on Tuesday when he gets back, doing a story about EWC and Deloitte and the work that he's done with that system and his vision for the future and the collaborations with Deloitte as a way of getting more awareness to that project. I've got a meeting with Everton later today to talk about a chapter spotlight for Brazil and also to do some testing with the webinar platform that he has. It'd be great to really start considering ways that we can automate the captioning. So I'd give him a hand with a promotional video yesterday, but using some of the YouTube automatic captions and then the automatic translations as something to edit rather than starting from scratch, I think will save a lot of time. So I think it's great, the webinar stuff that he's been doing. So, again, big picture, I'm looking at what are we doing currently and what can I work on to help facilitate the stuff that's really working, I think, in terms of communications. And then after getting some momentum with some of these projects, I think we can start looking at maybe some new additions to what's already on the menu.
That's great.
Yeah, nice.
So that's what I got. And I'll be having this report, so I'll just add it to that media coordination page in the hub. And hopefully I can kind of keep a dialogue with not just through the SPC, but with the wider community. There's been a couple of people, Chad's reached out and had some ideas. So it'll be great to try to get some feedback and let people know that there's sort of this open dialogue. So we can do that through the hub, which is great.
Nice.
So that's what I got.
The other thing I was going to mention, just on that note, I was just going to mention one thing that I think much like what we've seen with Lumio proposals, where we have to kind of market them to the community a little bit to raise awareness.
Yep.
I think we want to think about the same thing when it comes to new spaces in the hub. I know we have the directory where people can go and find these spaces, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to just post something in the forum saying, hey, there's this new space here, please join us if you're interested in such and such, and just let people know about it.
Right. That's a great point. And in the same way that every time I go to the forum, I'm kind of, I don't know, I feel like a little bit of a DJ going through each post and saying, okay, well, what are they talking about? Is this an introduction? And then I add that topic in. And I think we can start when topics do come up. If somebody has a question about technology, it'd be great to try to invite people to some of these spaces.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
If somebody's talking about something,
I've been doing that on a limited basis. Like if I see somebody that introduces themselves as a teacher, I automatically go and invite them to the e-NABLE Educators Exchange space. If I see somebody mention that they're a chapter leader, I'll go and invite them to the chapter leader space. But yeah, I agree. We should do more of that, inviting them to relevant spaces. That's a good idea. And I like that you're adding topics. That's very helpful.
Yeah. And, again, there's all this future potential for developing the hub. I mean, it's great that it's open source. So there's a lot of room to grow. I think it'll be interesting, not just external campaigns, which is, trying to get donors and funding and, communications out there to the public, but also for us to start coming up with some internal campaigns. So, for example, I don't think there's any recipients that have self-identified within the hub currently in the system, when you go through and it says there's these different kinds of volunteers. So making that a priority for some of our chapters that are really active and saying, hey, let's get some of the recipients that you work with in the hub. There's some language barriers, of course, but it's fine for people to also be posting in Spanish and Portuguese and that kind of stuff in their project. So I think it would be really great if we can, have these internal campaigns that we start to look at. That's down the road, but that's some of that stuff where we can kind of have a catalyst to encourage people to do it. But as soon as that stuff takes off, it's self-sustaining.
Ben, the topic meistering that you're doing is really a great example of something that needs to be done and that because it's somewhat tedious and methodical and it has to be done regularly, is a great thing that you who are currently being paid for some of your time is doing. It occurs to me that the hub is growing nicely and activity is growing nicely. Also, there's a lot of activity going on in the various Facebook and social media groups. Therefore, I've just noted 2 high impact suggestions for Ben's consideration. One has to do with some sort of methodology for ongoing cross-posting with social media and the hub. And this issue that we've discussed, which Mazvi may be able to help us with, facilitating internal navigation as well as cross-platform navigation, by which I mean,
well, John,
if you're looking for something in particular within the hub, it's still hard, and it gets harder as the forest grows. So we need to work on that.
Yeah, so we need kind of like a guide for the hub resources. You're right.
Right. There's a guide. There's topics will be very helpful that way. Ben has talked about making a topics dashboard.
Okay.
But of course, one of the challenges, we haven't figured out whether and how topics can cross spaces.
Right.
Anyway, that's exactly the kind of issue that I think that if we can crack.
Well, John, one of the things that you remind me of when you talk about cross-posting with social media, I know you had a page, and I don't know if it's still out there, but you had built something that was pulling down a stream from all the content from across all these different e-NABLE Facebook pages. Is that still functioning?
Yes and no. First of all, there is a Facebook stream which is a curated collection of posts from all over the place.
Okay. Well, the reason I was asking about, we've had some trouble embedding Facebook content directly within the hub. And that's why I was asking.
That's right.
But you had a page that was on e-NABLE.org that was collecting these different feeds, and that probably could be embedded pretty easily within the hub if that still works.
You're right. It doesn't, but I can talk with Mazvi about that. We should think about reviving that. Yeah, good thought.
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit of a house of mirrors strategy, but I do think having, sort of exactly what John was saying, having a system or strategy in place for saying, okay, what are these other social media platforms that we're covering? I mean, even within, Enabling the Future had that really great article about the conference, and it wasn't directly shared, I don't think, within the hub. I think if we can have a little checkbox of saying, okay, these are what we're checking on a weekly basis to try to pull some content in and then share some of our content with these other spaces.
Right.
We don't really have a means for tracking that yet, but it would be also, actually this is the question for Jeremy, getting access to the analytics for Enabling the Future, for the hub, for some of these key places that were these online presence spaces for e-NABLE. We can start tracking this stuff. We can start looking on a regular basis at what the activity patterns are like, and also sort of playing into that. So I don't know if that's something in a later call, but it'd be great to be able to get access to that stuff and basically pull together what are our metrics, what do we have access to.
Yep. So I'll take a couple of action items here. I can give you access, Ben, to our Google Analytics for Enabling the Future, and I will have to set up Google Analytics for the hub because I don't think I've done that yet. So I will try to get that turned on and also give you access to that.
That'd be wonderful. And again, I mean, it's big picture. There's always really great ideas of things that we can do, but in terms of evaluating its success, figuring out what we're already doing and how that's working is going to be the really important first step for us before we can make changes and not really know if it's working or not.
Yeah.
Ben, it occurs to me that you should reach out to to the Hub people, and just ask them if any of the social media management tools like Hootsuite or a number of others that I don't understand, but I've forwarded you information about, if any of those is already hub savvy. Because if one of them was, that could become a tool for tracking and doing what we just talked about.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, as soon as we get the analytics set up with, if we have a list of basically the different services that we're tracking, and then we can point those to something like Google Analytics, we can, I think, pool a bunch of different services to the same analytics platform for tracking. And then for posting, it might be similar. Something like Hootsuite is more for posting. It allows you to basically create one post and then share it across platform. So sort of the incoming and the outgoing, having a process for that is gonna save a lot of time. And I think just tracking what we're already doing. So maybe catching up with Everton and finding out more about his strategy. All of these different chapters are basically independent organizations. So the more we can get a sense of what's working for people, the more we can create some resources to pull everybody's data sort of into a space where we can start looking at the trends and getting people to cross-pollinate this field of e-NABLE.
Ben, you have two challenges. One is to wrap your mind around all of this stuff. And the other is to then turn it into distilled and digested utilities so that other people don't have to wrap their minds around it. Yeah. I'm reminded of my little sermon to the Deloitte people who I might have scared away, saying that
no, Dan is with us.
Our goal is not merely to educate experts about what a complicated world we live in. It's to get them to make it really simple so that we don't have to all become experts.
We're still here. We completely agree with that sentiment.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been here the whole time.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. We did. Oh, no. Dan, just wait. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, because Dan just walked out of the room to go and get something, and his Apple Watch switched off.
Well, I knew I scared someone away. Okay.
All right, so
his Apple Watch is confusing.
So we'd better move along then. Ben, any other things that you'd like to cover right now?
Maybe I can just quickly ask Ed and the Deloitte team. So I shared the document in the notes. Is there anything that I can do to sort of support you guys? I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be talking to Bob to see if I can get a little story together about his plans and his work on EWC and what you guys are doing together as a way of, basically still staying on the sidelines, letting you guys work on the redesign, but getting more people aware of that whole process and project. Is there anything else that I can do to help you guys? And is there any ideas that you guys have about
whose work on EWC? Was that about you were saying the work on EWC?
Oh, I know that you guys are working with Bob on that stuff.
Ben, they're to be clear, they're working a little. I'd say they're working more with me on the development side because they're coming up with recommendations that'll. Bob does case facilitation, so he really is. He's more on the back end. He helps to facilitate cases. The Deloitte team is going to be giving me recommendations on how we can improve the platform. I'll be working with our developers to implement those recommendations.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, again, there's just a story about that I can do, but it's, in terms of the early stages of my process, I was curious if there's anything that I could do to help you guys or if you had any ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it looks really good, and I think to the point that we were talking about last week, and that John just mentioned around our goal, which is as you refer to it in the Lumio proposal, this idea of creating a sustainable model. That's where we really want to get to. And I mean, I think because the crucial thing about this kind of approach is how do you kind of formalize surfacing the user's voice in the discussions around development of a platform or development of a service, how do you formalize that in a way that's as kind of low effort as possible, so that we can easily get those insights, and then make sure that those are taken into account when we make decisions. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to align the kind of the media outreach and the general kind of outreach with that sort of user approach, because if you're reaching out to users, that also puts you in a good position to gather that feedback and to understand because you're starting a conversation rather than just saying this is what we're what we're putting out there. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, but I am also very conscious of, as John says, of us building this up slowly, rather than trying to do too much at once and then finding that we're half doing a lot of stuff. So so I'm conscious of that, and I think that what we're as I said last week, we're going through this process, and we kind of sent you that process. What we want to deliver, kind of continuously, is a view of what the e-NABLE version of that process looks like, and what the e-NABLE cadence for that process is, and how it can fit, absolutely sustainably into what we're doing, because it shouldn't be it's not necessarily a big thing. As I say, it's just formalizing that. What does the user think, and figuring out how to do that in the most kind of low effort way. That's really the goal of it.
Right. Cool. Yeah, and again, from the stuff that I'll be working on, some of it is sort of this testing stuff we had talked about at the conference. Unmet needs of different chapters. So this past week, started looking at how we can use the topics to create a new topic for that in the forum, put a spreadsheet together. We can sort of try this stuff as little pilots, and what works, we can kind of take notes on, and what doesn't work, we can kind of take notes on. And
and I think that's exactly what we want to build on for the work that we're doing. Is how can we make that, use as much of kind of what we've learned in our work to kind of formalize that process, but also make it as simple as possible. So things like where the insights from that are saved, how you structure those insights in a way that, as John says, makes it really easy to share with other people. So it's not just about kind of gathering the data, and I think we can come up with a really good process for that.
Sounds good.
It'll be great.
All right.
Yeah. We can. So I mean, I've gone through a lot of what we were going to kind of cover in our update by doing that there. In terms of the agenda, do we want to cover that, or is there other stuff we want to cover?
Ben, did we cover everything?
Good. Yep.
Okay, so Dan, Ed, both of you are up, and you could do a joint update or give a separate update. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, no, it'd be a joint update. So yeah, as I say, we've been again moving forward this week. Dan has done some kind of excellent work developing the concepts around case creation and the not really going into kind of case management, really just kind of the case creation part of the e-NABLE Web Central journey. And we have also been kind of synthesizing the user research for the the user research, which kind of as we're kind of continuing to gather it. And I was just going to show you a nice photo of the of that user research, which I believe I can show you here. Let me show it to you now. There it is. So it's not as big as I'd hoped, but if I turn it this way, will it make it bigger? Oh yeah, and that was for me turning my phone on its side, and it made it bigger. So this is so basically, as I was describing there, we want to create a sustainable process. The point is, though, we're doing some of these exercises are kind of one-off exercises that we're doing because this is the start of the process, and we will use those to we'll synthesize those in a way that then they can be used kind of day to day, or not necessarily day to day, but kind of in an ongoing and sustainable way by the e-NABLE team. But it won't necessarily require like this level of effort, because this is just a first time kind of level of effort. So this is, yes, synthesizing kind of the user research and the feedback that we've got, but just in case.
Ed, I've got a question for you. When you talked about when you're working on the concepts around case creation, does the scope of that include the initial onboarding process when a user first creates an account?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the yes, it does. So that's so the week before we were looking at the week before we were looking at how they get to EWC, and then this week we've been looking from kind of login all the way to kind of the initial case creation. So and to be clear on kind of what we would then have next week, our aim for the end of next week, because Dan is then going to Los Angeles at the end of after next week. The aim is that we will have the effectively kind of the journeys for around from kind of the start through to case creation, and we'll have a visual prototype for effectively for enabling the future. So it will be kind of the baseline of the stuff that is needed, because I think the visuals are less important on the on EWC. I think it's more the conceptual in terms of what information should be kind of required when, and kind of structure and stuff like that. However, what we want to do is, give that as kind of that initial, this initial starting point. But then we want to start working with Ben and with others to see how we can then iterate that within e-NABLE and within the e-NABLE community, with us kind of alongside, and then see how we can basically test the sustainability of the approach. And Dan will be able to kind of continue with that. I'll be able to continue with that while Dan's away, but then Dan will be able to do a bit more on that when we're back, and then we can use that to kind of document that very sustainable kind of process that we think can be built into like the sort of the SPC process and the SPC sort of model. So we're thinking this is not a massive amount of additional effort on top of what's kind of already done, and potentially it just is it could even be just a topic on the agenda within the SPC meetings, and it could just be that level of effort. So yeah, that is the goal, and that's what we've been up to this week. But yeah, it would definitely be, now that, there was a couple of things. I wonder whether it's worth us putting putting, because you were talking about making sure we signpost this to the community and market it to the community, or market these other ideas to the community, whether it's worth us putting a Lumio post, a Lumio kind of project up, just to, like you did with the feedback on the e-NABLE hub, and just to sort of get the idea kind of out there, and just make sure we're using all of the channels as effectively as we could be.
You certainly can, Ed. I want to give you another possibility. I mean, Lumio is usually what we use for voting and decision making. This might be a better candidate for the hub. So in the hub, you could write up just create a project space, and I can help you with that if you need. And you could kind of document what you're doing there. We do have a polling, function within the hub, so you can easily create polls right within the hub too, if you want to get feedback or ask for people's input.
I thought it was kind of I guess the thing that I was kind of keen was that to tie it together with Everton's proposal around the PMO and Ben's proposal around media coordination, just to kind of and then this sort of building user-centered design into our approach for development of the online presence. Okay. I felt like it was kind of on a par with those, or like it kind of was nice to be able to say, this is looking to kind of tie all of those things together. And so having it on Lumio so that if someone went on there, they would see those things. But I mean,
no, you certainly can, and you could even do it on both. I'm thinking in terms of visibility. I mean, Lumio, we generally only have maybe 20 or 30 people that really are active in Lumio, whereas the hub is now over 400. So
I would actually, I agree with Jeremy, but I think, Ed, you're right, that tying them together is a great idea. But that tying together is, I think, more of a hub function. So if you link to, reference, or even if you want to experiment, embed those Lumio things within the hub,
that's a good idea.
Then create a space where you can get what you're hoping for, which I think is visibility and discussion.
I haven't done too much with the polling, but the hub also has a polling feature. I think it's pretty limited, but you could look into, when you create a space, having one of these modules for polling and just asking pretty general questions to try to get some user feedback on a project.
That's right.
Because at the moment there isn't a space for kind of the sort of like online presence, like feedback on the online presence.
Right. Well, I think there will be very soon.
I definitely think it's a good candidate for a project space, and you guys can create that. Let me know if you have any questions about how to create the space or how to get the functionality that you want. I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you. Quick question just on user feedback. When you go through the registration process for EWC, there's that checkbox there that allows you to sign up for or leave user feedback on that side of it within EWC. Where does that feedback go to if you do receive any?
If I recall correctly, you're talking about just that sort of checkbox in the initial user onboarding. Is that right?
Yeah.
Basically, right now it's not being used specifically. It just goes into the database as a field. So we have a record of who has responded yes or no, but we're not actively doing anything with it right now. We had future functionality planned for e-NABLE Web Central, where through e-NABLE Web Central itself, we plan to actually, do follow-up feedback, so that for people who've received a device, we want to, touch base with them after a month, after 6 months, after a year, see if they're still using the device, see how it's working, what would they like to see improved, etc. We have not yet built those components, so we're not really using that at this time.
But is there information lurking in there that Dan and Ed would like to use as they, organize their insights?
I mean, potentially in terms of people we could ask, but we could ask. I mean, if they've said specifically that they wanted to give feedback, then it might be interesting to ask them. But I think it might be. What do you think? You look pensive.
No,
it's okay to look
Friday.
No, it's all right to look pensive. What are you, what
No, I was just curious as to what was captured there. But
Yes.
just
Okay.
for
In terms
future
of-
proofing.
but theoretically, we could use theoretically, that's then people who've said that they're willing to have their email address used to ask for feedback. So we
You know,
could use
the other thing, guys, is we do have an internal messaging capability within e-NABLE Web Central. So I actually have an admin screen where I have the ability to send a mass mail to all e-NABLE Web Central users or just device recipients. So if you have, for example, maybe a poll that you've created or something like that, through e-NABLE Web Central, I could send an email to all of those, you know, device recipients or requesters or what have you, and invite them to fill out that poll or send them any other message that you like.
that might be good, wouldn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good to know. We will keep that in mind because that definitely sounds like something that it would be nice to. It would be nice to use.
Yeah, just exploring that sustainable.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, that's how we do that, how we gather that feedback. I think, I mean, the hub's going to be crucial for that, and that messaging functionality in e-NABLE Web Central, I think, will be crucial for that. And hopefully, we'll be at the stage where it will be really simple, so that it's a kind of a very easy, just we have this question we want answered, we send it out, we get the answer, we respond accordingly, kind of thing. That's where we'd like to get it to. But so that is so I think that's been kind of the what we've been up to this week. And as I say, focus is on focus for next week will be on the prototype and the kind of the end-to-end journeys, and we'll continue working on the process in terms of how and I think working with you, Ben, I think will be great on that in terms of making sure that works well.
Great.
Okay.
I tried zooming in on that photo you gave us.
I think that, you can. It's still a work in progress, but we can.
I don't think we'll be able to read the sticky notes.
It was, and they are, they're sticky notes. I mean,
right.
So I will send it to you, it was more to shareable version.
No, it certainly achieves the job of helping us understand your process and how much work you've been doing.
The key thing was the key thing with that was quite a lot of work, but we're trying to create a process that avoids having to do that amount of work in future. That was the message.
Right. I've done this kind of exercise before, and it's exactly the right thing to do.
Yeah.
If you have access to that room and an iPhone, I think you would find that if you did a panoramic photo, while it would be nice, I would enjoy being able to browse those Post-it notes.
And I think one of the points here is, not to speak for John, but I think you guys might be used to, you're working with clients, you're doing professional engagements, you're probably in the habit of not presenting things to your clients until they're fairly well polished and presentable.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you that's not necessary for a community like ours. You're encouraged to just share rougher kind of works along the way. That's perfectly acceptable.
No, definitely. I think, no. That, as I say, we'll I can send it now via.
But we can also wait a week.
Sure.
I mean, if you have a high photo,
I am keen that we do that, and I mean, I think, potentially the hub will be a good way of doing that. I mean, it's a hard habit for us to break around the way that we share stuff. But we do that much more. The way that we work with clients as opposed to our how we worked in the old days is much more like that. But we should. We can look at that. Like, it doesn't need to be the whole deck. I mean, wait. If I go participants, if I send it in the chat, can I send photos in the chat?
We'll take another photo.
We'll take another photo.
Send it by email. That's fine. All right. So go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, it'll be great to, in terms of this process, to kind of inspire some of the other teams. e-NABLE really is just this group of multiple, it's all these different organizations that work in all these different ways that come together in sort of a similar goal. But it could be really cool to try to inspire some of this stuff with other chapters that have their own web spaces and that kind of stuff. So the more that we can share about your process, I think it could be really great to get the reaction from other chapters.
It may be helpful to point out that when you present your distilled recommendations to the CEO, whoever engages you, someone gets to say, okay, this is what we shall do, and the organization will get in line. We don't have that process.
No.
And so sharing the work in progress, giving people a chance to know that it's happening and to buy in and provide feedback makes it easier for us to actually get more parties voluntarily in line. That's the only way they do get in line. And under some circumstances, at least, directives are ignored.
Absolutely. Okay. Cool. Though to your earlier point about distilling it in a way that's
this is not an alternative to that.
That's simple and refreshing, concise. I think that sometimes when you give people too much information, that can also mean that they ignore it. So I think.
Okay,
but no, completely. We're taking people on the journey. I'm wondering whether the hub, because one of the things that we were discussing earlier as well is that at the moment, outputs of research aren't necessarily being captured in a sort of central way. Like, insights aren't necessarily being captured centrally. And I mean, the hub is a great place for those insights to be captured. Obviously, not insights containing personally identifiable information, but stuff like the write-up of that SAFE, that came about as a result of SAFE research, those sort of things. I think just to kind of keep that conversation going around what it is that what the picture looks like from users on the ground, I think.
Just create if you create a space, there's one of the space types is a project space, and just consider all the work that you're doing, as a project, and create a space for it, and it just gives you kind of a dumping ground where you can start to post updates of what you're doing, and then later as it evolves, you can post more finished works, but that way you can kind of just post updates as you go.
I'm just sort of thinking whether it makes sense to have like e-NABLE insights or e-NABLE user research as a space, or whether it makes more sense to have an e-NABLE online presence project that we just do, that we work on with this, and then we look to maybe that is the best.
I would think that's probably better. I mean, just create a space for this online presence, initiative, and then within that space, you can have you can have a wiki, and one of the wiki categories can be user insights, and you can have other categories for other types of information.
Because actually, Dan's already got quite a lot of wiki content, which is on our internal wiki, which was there so that we could gather it, to share it with you, but actually we can share it on the thing. So
great.
Cool.
Great.
Okay. Anything else you guys wanted to cover, or are we okay to move on?
No, I think we're good. So we will then, for next week, we will create the space and then share that. Dan, sickness, health notwithstanding, will hopefully he'll recover over the weekend. Will also create the visual prototype for enabling the future, and we'll have some kind of the user level, but like not super detailed descriptions of the kind of the journeys that people will take from enabling the future through EWC. And so, and kind of just that sort of, basically the outputs of that card sorting exercise plus the type of information that they would be getting kind of at each stage. So that kind of journey.
Okay.
Which will be our ideal journey, and then the task then will be to work out with you, Jeremy, what parts of that we then tackle with the developers in terms of how we update it. So I think ETF will be one set of updates, but then it will be, okay, how do we, do we agree with this, and how do we move towards this journey with EWC?
Excellent. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's all good from my side.
Okay, so I guess I'm up next. I'll be very brief. I met with my recipient, Ralph, yesterday, the one I've been working on a custom device for. So this was version 2. The first one didn't quite fit well, so we made some adjustments. In addition to the sizing, we made some improvements to the design itself. We adjusted the thumb position, and we lengthened the distal components of the fingers and thumb to provide a better gripping pattern. And it went very well. I did have to do some final thermoforming while we were on site. The occupational therapist had a heat gun, so we made some final adjustments, and at that point it did fit well, and he was able to work quite well with it. He did some stacking of these plastic cones, and he was able to perform quite well with it. And I did capture video of all this. I actually already shared that video with Jake, the guy who's helping me with 3D modeling. Because we do want to do another iteration. So I left this current version with him. He was able to take it home. He has something that he can use now, and he's just completely thrilled and excited about it. But we do think that we can make some further improvements by extending the palm area a little bit to give him a bit more support. We're going to change how the Velcro is working. Because he actually, he's using this device on his right hand and he only has 2 fingers on his left hand, and we found that he has a hard time, getting the Velcro straps, and so we're actually going to attach the Velcro differently, which I'll show. I'm going to write this all up as a project, and we're going to attach little rings, little metal key rings to the Velcro so that he can just kind of stick a finger through and use that to pull the Velcro straps. So I think we have some nice ideas to make it easier for him to use and make it a little bit more functional. But so far it's going really well. He's very pleased with the device, and the OTs at Cook County Health were really excited about the results, and they already have another recipient lined up for me that I'll be working with next. I actually wanted your input on that, John. I think I sent an email on this. This next guy I'll be working with, I want to do some kind of a voluntary opening device, kind of like the gripper thumb or the moto gripper, but he has a partial hand. He has about half of his palm. So I'm wondering, do we have any devices that have an open palm area but are voluntary opening?
I responded on the hub last night, and Nate has suggested that the prayer hand he's working on might be just what you want. That's a Qualo adaptation.
Great, I'll look at that.
So
excellent, thank you. I'll check that out.
When you catch up, you'll see that the conversation has progressed as you would hope.
Sounds good. I'll look at that after this meeting. And that's all I have for right now then. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Just a quick add-on to that, Jeremy. It'd be awesome whenever you get a chance. If you do make a project page for this sort of customization project, I'm going to be working with Samantha. I'm going to be meeting with her and Rodrigo over the weekend to look at her research. But as soon as we can get the okay to try out these evaluation icons, it'd be pretty cool to try to encourage these experimental designs. through kind of linking it all together. So getting
Yeah, I agree.
your project.
I was just thinking about whether it's better to create a separate space for this, or if maybe, we already have a space for enable device customization. So this could just be, maybe a page on the wiki within that existing space where I could just
Perfect.
okay, so I'll do that. And then, like you said, I can also post the STL files for this custom design once it's sort of finished up a little bit more. So over in the enable devices space, we have a category for experimental designs and kind of work in progress designs, and I can share the design there to make it available to others.
That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, we can sort of. You first, John.
I was going to say there are two interesting aspects of this. One is, I think that this process of doing customization with the recipient at the time of delivery is really, really important. I always do that, but I've seen other volunteers who don't. They think you deliver the device and it's done.
That's right, and especially having the OT there to help me with those customizations was especially helpful, because he has skills that I don't. That was really nice to be able to work with him.
Doing that is important. Sharing the case or the project is a way of encouraging people to do it. And then, of course, those customizations and adaptations ought somehow, and maybe just through making them visible, feed back to the designers in the next improvement of our new and improved standard design. There ought to be a whole iterative development cycle based in part on retrieving information about the customizations people find they have to do. We don't have that, but the first step is, in fact, to make it visible.
Yep, agreed. I'll try to work on that. I'll put an action item down for myself to start in on that this week.
I think that's exactly right. And I mean, that's one of the things, that's one of our kind of hypotheses, which we sort of touched on last week, is that and you kind of mentioned it there, Jeremy, as being an ambition for Enable Web Central, was that kind of getting feedback and stuff like that. But I think, but yeah, it's sort of normalizing the idea that this kind of customization on delivery is a crucial part of this, and that it is not a transactional, like, it's not a shopping thing where you're like, it's not like Etsy or something.
Yep.
Etsy, maybe they do customize it, but yeah, not on the high street. I think that's something that we hope will come out in the design, is that kind of normalization of that process rather than that transaction.
Excellent. Okay, I'll start working on a write-up and share some of those lessons learned. Okay, so John, your updates.
So there's an event in Ottawa, November 1-2, where I'm going to be giving a talk about e-NABLE. It's an innovation event at the University of Ottawa by Midia, whose last name I don't remember, who does e-NABLE-like work in developing and war-torn regions. If anyone is up that way and they're interested in attending, I believe they would be more than welcome. I think that Ben and Andrea are going to come up with me, but we're working out the details there. I have, as noted previously, I have been working with Mazdi on our web and e-NABLE post infrastructure, and trying to figure out what we can do with his heretofore unavailable skill set. I've been working with Ben on the things that he's talked about, so I have nothing to add to that. Skip and I have been cleaning up documentation and features of the Moto Gripper. We have done our release, but I've already improved the assembly process and removed 2 holes and added a notch. And we have our documentation points to what's called the current and recommended version of the design. And that gets updated as improvements become current and recommended. So this whole issue of how do you make ongoing improvements available is something that we're thinking about. But, preserving snapshots of old versions while pointing to current and recommended and allowing that to recommend state of the art is what we're doing. Skip and Eric Bubar and I are working on an article or a post for Enabling the Future at Jen's invitation. And that should be nice because those are two different motorized gripper projects which have benefited from feedback and crosstalk, but actually represent two different approaches to the same general problem. So we're trying to tell that story.
Nice.
And when that happens, I think it will be posted in Enabling the Future, but then, Ben, I hope that it will be cross-posted both to the hub and to social media. And if we do more and more of this, I think things will begin to cohere.
Yeah, agreed.
Those are my stories.
Okay.
So I'm done.
Well, and I think that's actually where we're going to have to leave it for this week because we are at the top of the hour, so we'll have to save the rest of the agenda items for next time. Does anybody have anything that you would like to touch on before we wrap up? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and bring this to a close then. I'll get a recording out a little bit later on.
Cool. Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.